Fox News alert, Iowa down, New Hampshire up. Next, Iowans sent their message loud and clear last night. They chose former President Donald Trump by a record-breaking margin, and Republicans are dropping out. Vivek Ramaswamy last night, and then just 10 minutes ago, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson has suspended his campaign. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Last night, the Associated Press called the Iowa caucus's winner in fewer than 60 minutes after people had begun voting. Governor Ron DeSantis in second, a distant second, and just a few points ahead of Nikki Haley. Vivek Ramaswamy, whom I just mentioned, with only single-digit support. Each candidate with a message to voters after those results, one of them shaking up the race.
As of this moment, we are going to suspend this presidential campaign.
We deserve a new direction under new conservative leadership. We deserve a president who will focus on the needs of our people, not on themselves.
Because of your support, in spite of all of that they threw at us, everyone against us, we've got our ticket punched out of Iowa.
I want to congratulate Ron and Nikki for having a good time together. We're going to put America first. We're going to make America great again. Again, Iowa, we love you.
The former president's Make America Great Again message resonating in Iowa. Fox News voter analysis shows 62% of the state's GOP voters support Make America Great Again, the movement. And when it comes to the issues, the border leapfrogged the economy as the most important to Iowa voters. In focus, Judd Gregg, former governor and senator of New Hampshire. We begin with Team Fox coverage. Alexis McAdams is in the Granite State. First, let's go to Bill Malugin, who is in Iowa. Bill.
Harris, good morning to you. Trump was absolutely dominant last night. He finished the evening above that 50% threshold. That means he got more votes than everybody running against him all combined together. And after his big win, it appeared he was extending maybe a little bit of an olive branch. Take a listen.
It would be so nice if we could come together and straighten out the world and straighten out the problems and straighten out all of the death and destruction that we're witnessing. That's practically never been like this. It's just so important. And I want to make that a very big part of our message. We're going to come together. It's going to happen soon, too.
As for Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, they were essentially neck and neck all night long. Eventually, DeSantis finished in second place with about 21% of the vote. You heard him say earlier he feels he punched his ticket out of Iowa with that second place finish. Nikki Haley finished in third place with about 19% of the vote. Despite that third place finish, she says this is now a two-person race, including herself. Take a listen. Okay, it sounds like we may have had the wrong sound there, but we'll move on to Vivek. We'll move on to Vivek Ramaswamy. He finished in fourth place last night, just under 8%. He announced that he is suspending his campaign, dropping out of the race, and endorsing Donald Trump. He's actually going to be on the campaign trail with Trump in New Hampshire later on this week. He'll be joining him at a rally. And back out here live, Harris, it was interesting. According to a Fox News voter analysis, we asked Iowans, what is the most important issue facing the country right now? Coming in at number one was immigration, with about 41% of the vote. That came in ahead of the economy and jobs, as well as foreign policy and health care. So immigration number one, as the border crisis continues to completely spiral out of control, with all-time records constantly being broken. We'll send it back to you.
Bill Malugin, thank you. 1 week until the next step. New Hampshire, the primary there, a very different contest, and analysts say a very different electorate.
We also have a different kind of demographic here in New Hampshire as well. We're an older population, but we still have the young vote. With the independents,
it's a small area, so they don't really have anywhere to go. So they look them directly in the eyes, are able to, have these tough conversations, and the customers do a great job at vetting them.
You may have heard Nikki Haley now is claiming it's a two-person race. She's in New Hampshire today. The former president headed there later today. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis with a stop in South Carolina before he hits New Hampshire later today as well. Alexis McAdams has more from Bedford, New Hampshire. Alexis.
Hi, Harris. Well, we'll see out here in New Hampshire in just a matter of days. And you can see a little bit of that snow behind me, but still much warmer here than Iowa. But now all eyes are here on the Granite State. Nikki Haley already on the ground talking with voters. Harris, she tells Fox News this morning she thinks she's put in the groundwork here in New Hampshire to close in on Donald Trump. Watch.
You can look at the polls in New Hampshire. We're a stone's throw away from Donald Trump. And so we're going to continue to work really hard. We've been here for 11 months. We've done over 75 town halls.
And we're now just 1 week out, if you can believe it, from the first in the nation primary here. Former President Donald Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley will be on the ground tonight campaigning in New Hampshire, talking with voters and trying to get more support. DeSantis stopped in South Carolina, Harris, first. He says he's sending a message to Nikki Haley that he is not backing down, trying to stop there in her home state to show that. Some polls show the GOP race is tightening here. This is a much different race here than it is in Iowa. If you look at that poll from last week, before Chris Christie and Ramaswamy dropped out there, it shows Trump leading among likely primary voters with 39%. Haley's a close second place with 32%. That's a 12-point jump from November alone. As we know, Ramaswamy suspended his campaign. He's going to campaign with Trump tonight here in New Hampshire. So we'll see where his votes go in the Granite State. So what do New Hampshire voters care about the most, Harris? The economy and immigration. Governor Kristen Sununu, who's backing Haley, says the northern border is a big issue. Listen.
When you have more people on the terrorist watch list coming over through the northern border than the southern, given all the international tensions right now, folks are really putting the border security as a top national security issue.
And Nikki Haley, Harris, said that she's not going to debate anymore, even though there are some planned debates in the coming days, unless Trump or President Biden is up on that stage. DeSantis calling her out on Twitter this morning, saying Nikki Haley is just running to be Trump's VP. So a lot going on here already in New Hampshire, Harris.
Yeah, that is interesting. Vivek Ramaswamy endorsed former President Donald Trump. But as you said, we don't know what that will mean yet for voters until they show us. Great to see you, Alexis. Thank you. A Wall Street Journal headline today: having conquered Iowa, Trump sets his sights on New Hampshire and Haley. And the editorial board wrote this: Haley's relative strength in the Granite State speaks to Trump's weakness in the general election. Independents can vote in either party primary in the swing state, and Haley is attracting these voters who will be crucial in the half dozen states that will be decisive in November. It's also one reason most polls show she defeats Biden easily, while Trump is barely ahead despite the president's historically low approval rating. Judd Gregg, both the former governor and former senator for New Hampshire, has already endorsed Nikki Haley, and he is in focus. Welcome, Governor. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me on, Harris.
Okay, so let's just unpack last night for your candidate. She came in third place. And Ron DeSantis, for all that hard work, 99 counties, all those things that he did, and he said all those things that he faced as well, he came in second to Trump. Everybody's distant from Trump. So we'll just set him on the shelf for a second. But with DeSantis and Nikki Haley, game on.
Well, not in New Hampshire. This is really is a two-person race in New Hampshire. DeSantis is polling in the maybe 5-6% range. In fact, he wouldn't even qualify for the debate under most debate structures in New Hampshire. And so this truly is a two-person race in New Hampshire. And as your report has said, it's an interesting race in that independents can vote in our primary. And the independent in New Hampshire has historically leaned to the right. They're very strongly dominated by educated women, and they do not like Trump. And so I suspect you're going to see a significant independent vote, because there's no reason to vote in the Democratic primary. There isn't really one. The president won't come to New Hampshire. Right. So they're going to move into the Republican primary. Plus, I don't think Trump can get to 50% in New Hampshire. And in 2016, he had 32%, but he had four major candidates running against him. We got in the teens and 20s. So this time there's only going to be one candidate running against him in New Hampshire who's going to be competitive with him, and that's Nikki Haley. You actually think she can get to 50% against Trump? I don't know. We're going to find out. New Hampshire is a late deciding state. People listen right up until the last weekend.
Yeah, I was there during campaign season.
Usually on the last weekend.
I was there during campaign season. I was with the Vivek Ramaswamy and his family for my Families in Focus series, and I met people who had gone to events for candidates 3 and 4 times to get to know them. They really lean in. Iowa does too. It's amazing to see Americans caring this much. It actually is heartwarming. I want to get to this. One columnist argues, and this is a quote, Governor, Haley still doesn't have a real path to the nomination, writing that her numbers are buoyed by independents and Democrats, which may bode well if she ever gets to a general election, but isn't going to carry her through a Republican primary, especially when the other 2 leading candidates are incredibly popular among Republicans. What's your reaction?
That person really misses the point. The path to the nomination is narrow. There's no question about that. DeSantis doesn't have a path, but Haley does. It's very narrow. I admit to that.
Well,
she does very well in New Hampshire, and she moves into Super Tuesday as the alternative to Trump. You've got to remember, there are a large number of states on Super Tuesday that Trump's not going to do well in. You got Massachusetts, you got Maine, you got Vermont, you got California, you got Colorado. These are not strong states for President Trump. So he's going to do well in the southern states, no question about that. So she could come out of Super Tuesday with a fairly significant delegate count. And in a 2-person race, things change. We all know that. We've all been around this.
I'm going to challenge you just a little bit, Governor, because there is a psychology when people look at someone who can or cannot win their own home state. And you jumping to March 5th to Super Tuesday skips over the contest in South Carolina, which, I mean, we'll find out if that was a smart thing for DeSantis's campaign to do, was just to dip in a little bit in South Carolina, lay that ground that, hey, Nikki Haley, I'm in your backyard, and then go on and do event after event in New Hampshire. That might end up really working for him. But what won't work for her is if she gets trounced by double digits even by Donald Trump in South Carolina. Don't you think that'll have an impact?
Well, that would have an impact, no question about it. I think, however, DeSantis in running in South Carolina actually takes votes from Trump, doesn't take votes from Haley. So it's probably a plus for her to have him stay in through South Carolina. But yeah, if she gets trounced in South Carolina, that's clearly going to be very difficult to recover from. But if she doesn't, and she goes into Super Tuesday as the alternative, look at the states that are voting. She could do very well. Now, is it a clear path? No. It's a very difficult path. As I said, it's a narrow path. But I think your newspaper correspondent there misses the point. There is a path.
Real quickly, she announced this morning she's not interested in doing any other debates unless they have Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Your quick thoughts on that?
Well, I think she's right. In New Hampshire, there's no reason for her to debate DeSantis because he's at 5 or 6%, as I said, wouldn't qualify for a debate. I think the president's got to stop hiding from the questions which might be asked in a debate format. And so I think trying to flush him out and get him on the stage with her would be an interesting thing to have happen. I'd love to see the president and Nikki Haley debate. I mean, he's very aggressive and very effective, and so I don't see why he's backing away from it.
You know what's interesting? He gets so much punching from a media that's liberal and hates him. I saw this in 16 and 20. He gets a debate every time he walks out of his front door. I mean, they're on him. I know that's not the same thing as debating a competitor within your own party, but it is an interesting exercise if you're looking for reps. I've loved this
but on
one,
the other side
and
of the
having
coin,
you
he
on.
gets a huge. Well, thank you. On the other side of the coin, remember, he's getting a huge boost from the mainstream liberal media because they really want him to be president. I mean, not president. They want him to be the nominee.
They think Biden can beat him. We haven't seen anything that Biden
think he's
can
the most
beat a
beatable
Republican.
candidate, right? Yeah, well, I mean, let's face it. If it's between Nikki Haley and Donald Trump for taking on Biden, and I'm not sure Biden's going to be the nominee. To be very honest with you, I don't think he will be. I think he's going to step down. But as a practical matter, Nikki Haley will run a lot more effectively against Joe Biden because she picks up the independent vote, especially the women's vote.
We'll see if that will make up the difference for those in MAGA who love Donald Trump. We'll watch every inch of it and cover all of it. And I hope you'll come back. Governor Judd Gregg, great to have you on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Days after President Biden said Iran knows not to do anything. Well, now its attack in the Middle East has gotten stronger. The latest coming dangerously close to a U.S. consulate. And Iran's backed and trained terrorist fighters have spent months targeting our forces in the region. All the tension as controversy continues around the defense secretary's secret hospitalization. Now, he's out of the hospital after 2 weeks there on a return, a complication, a surgery the White House was never informed of contemporaneously. They didn't know for days where he was. Steve Hilton in Focus next. Iran is on the move against us. Yesterday, Iranian Revolutionary Guard actually fired missiles into northern Iraq, not far from the U.S. consulate. And Iran is using its paid buddies, terrorists, to attack our forces too. Houthi killers hit a U.S.-owned ship off the coast of Yemen. Those strikes may have been in retaliation for some moves that we're finally making. The U.S. and the U.K. hit more than 60 Houthi targets last week. We also learned that the U.S. Navy seized Iranian-made weapons last week. The arms were headed to Houthi fighters in Yemen, bloodthirsty terrorists. Those same people, hereto will be called savages, have attacked dozens of commercial ships in the Red Sea over the last couple of months. And Iran-backed terrorists have also targeted U.S. forces in the Middle East at least 137 times since October 17th. General Jack Keane with this.
Iran doesn't care how many rockets and missiles we destroy in Yemen. They will just give them more. Iran further doesn't care how many of the Houthi rebels we kill, because they know they're a radicalized group and they'll get new members. They are the center of gravity. We've got to organize ourselves to go against them.
And there's a cloud over all this instability and danger. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, just back home from his 2-week hospital stint after surgery the week before that apparently didn't go well, or at least as anticipated. And along the lines, a lot of controversy since the White House didn't even know where he was for 3 days. The Pentagon says Secretary Austin will work from home for the time being, doctor's orders. And breaking news just now, Fox has learned that just today, the United States hit and destroyed 4 Iran-provided Houthi anti-ship ballistic missiles in Yemen. Steve Hilton, Fox News contributor. Steve, first your reaction to that breaking news.
Well, too little, too late. And that's why people are so terrified now about an escalation. The weakness of the Biden administration has invited this escalation. So we can look at the shambles surrounding Lloyd Austin and talk about that personal aspect of it. That itself projects a message of weakness. But as so often with this administration, it's not actually just the incompetence. This is a matter of deliberate policy design. It goes right back to the beginning of this administration. They have had a policy of appeasement. That's actually what it is, because they believe, sincerely, it seems, that if you are nice to bad guys, then they'll suddenly become good. But exactly the opposite has happened. And you see it time and time again. And so what you've seen is the collapse of U.S. deterrence that was built up with President Trump. And you saw it with Putin, where they dropped the sanctions on Nord Stream, hoping that that would appease him. It didn't work. You got exactly the opposite result. You saw it with Afghanistan. You see it with Iran, where they've just been desperate from day one to get back into that nuclear deal. And so the message that goes around the world is that we don't trust America to really deter aggression. They've actually got a name for it. The Biden administration bragged about it. They call it integrated deterrence. They said we no longer need...
What does that even mean?
I know.
Integrated.
Integrated deterrence. What they meant by that, it seems, is that we're going to use technology and we no longer need to rely on our military so much to deter bad guys. Well, look at the result. A more dangerous and chaotic world.
Wow. Integrated deterrence. Axios is reporting that President Biden is running out of patience with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But he'll hit this target. The two haven't spoken in 3.5 weeks. The last call reportedly ended with frustration, Biden saying, "This conversation is over," and there it is. And take a look at this. The anti-Israel protesting in our nation, far from over. A massive group in New York City marched to multiple hospitals, including a large cancer center. They were chanting shame and complicity in genocide. The group's organizers say they targeted the hospitals because they take in donations from Jewish billionaires. One witness, a 74-year-old Jewish man, expressing horror over the scene, saying he felt like he was in 1939 Germany. Steve.
I mean, it's just unbelievable, isn't it? It's so despicable. I mean, you could sort of joke about it and say sometimes when you look at the antics of these pro-Palestinian demonstrators, it's almost as if they're a psyop or some kind of secret operation from Mossad sent to undermine the Palestinian cause in the eyes of normal, decent people who look at this stuff and think, where are your hearts? I mean, remember, this is the same kind of attitude we saw right at the beginning of this, when we just couldn't believe our eyes as we saw people ripping down those posters on the streets, including of hostages who are children and babies. It's the same kind of mentality. And as to the broader point about Biden, it's incredible, isn't it, how quickly we, and it seems the political system on the Democratic side, just forgets about the absolute horror and atrocity.
Oh, I don't think they forgot. I think they see that there's a far left section of their party that won't vote for him because they're telling him Rashida Tlaib is letting them know. He knows he's got to capitulate. Otherwise, he won't just lose the black vote. He's going to lose the Muslim vote, too. And the game is on. So, yeah, it's sad all around because his policies don't help the situation on the ground in Israel anyway. They're going back and forth right now.
Exactly.
It's exactly what you say, though, that the hate is driving this. Those people in the streets, if they really wanted to help the Palestinians, this is not how you would do it. You would find a way to get some money to them and ask these other Arab nations to take more of them in.
That's right. I mean, look, by the way, to that point, look what's going on with the other Arab nations. That massive fortified border wall that they're building to keep the Palestinians out. Where is the solidarity? You know, it's exactly right. There's so much more that could be done than this despicable attack, basically, on anyone who's associated with the state of Israel or Jewishness. It's unbelievable.
Steve Hilton in Focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Harris.
The district attorney who is going after Donald Trump in the state of Georgia is now facing new accusations of wrongdoing. Boy, they pile up day by day, don't they? Republicans want answers now over her hiring an alleged lover to be the lead prosecutor in the case. New receipts raising even more questions. Republicans are shelling out big cash to attack one another.
We know her as Crooked Hillary, but to Nikki Haley, she's her role model.
Ron DeSantis, losing and lying. Imagine a president with grit and grace, a different style, not a name from the past.
Eye-popping ads are going on in Iowa first as the GOP candidates now turn to New Hampshire, and we'll see more of them there. What voters there are likely to see on the airwaves. Miranda Devine in Focus next.
We don't need to talk about them as criminals. They're not.
Nikki Haley, too weak, too liberal to fix the border.
Have you noticed something different about Ron DeSantis lately? Yeah, we noticed too. Ron DeSantis is lying about Nikki Haley. I wonder why.
Donald Trump is running for his issues. Nikki Haley's running for her donors' issues. I'm running for your issues.
Just a sample of the attack ads that flooded the media in Iowa. Federal election filings show the candidates and their allies spent more than $123 million in advertising, which breaks the record set in the 2020 caucuses. Ron DeSantis took the brunt of the negative ads, nearly $48 million worth against him. Nikki Haley was next, $24 million against her. Former President Trump faced $23 million, and the current president, $21 million in the state. And so now I think I understand why Ron DeSantis often says, with all that was against us, blah, 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 about coming in second and all of that. I get it now. That's a lot of ad money against him. Miranda Devine, Fox News contributor and New York Post columnist. I want to get your take on the cash that was spent.
Hi, Harris. Well, look, it's fantastic for Donald Trump that the two main candidates scrabbling for second place, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, just threw cash at each other to try and destroy each other and, brought each other down. It does work. Negative advertising does work. And Ron DeSantis last night in Des Moines, when he was giving his sort of speech after coming second, he said they threw everything but the kitchen sink at us and we had $50 million of negative ads against us. And so I think Donald Trump said this a long time ago, that it would suit him if there were a lot of people vying to battle him for the nomination. And because the donors haven't been able to make up their mind between Haley and DeSantis, this is the way it is, and it doesn't look like either of them is going to drop out soon.
So that's really interesting. I want to get more of your take on why the negative ads work. I mean, whenever you interview voters now, I'm sure you're finding it too. They want somebody to bring the country together. They don't want all that negativity. But what you're telling me is maybe they don't know what they want.
Well, look, I talked to some voters last night at a caucus event in Indianola, which is just outside of Des Moines, and they went 53% for Donald Trump, but they were also 27% for DeSantis. And the ones who were going to vote for DeSantis and did vote for him mentioned that they didn't like the debate at which Nikki Haley and DeSantis were tearing strips off each other, the most recent one. They were so negative, so carping. They don't like that. And, by contrast, Donald Trump sort of seemed to breeze in to Iowa on Saturday night, whereas the others had been battling through blizzards and trying to get to all 99 counties. And Donald Trump really didn't break into a sweat, and yet he just looked sunny and optimistic and, talked about being there to battle the sort of the bad guys of the Biden administration. But, he didn't seem to be, no one seemed to lay a glove on him. In fact, I spoke to a caucus goer last night who said that they'd vote for Donald Trump even if he were in jail.
Well, there you go. And when you say that no one laid a glove on him in terms of his rivals, I mean, even last night when they were taking the stage one after the other at some of the caucus locations, I guess that would be an awkward place to do it. But if you're trying to beat the guy who's got a far lead, you might do it while he's actually there. I didn't actually see anybody do that, but I wasn't obviously at all 1,600 locations. The Georgia prosecutor leading the election interference case against former President Trump is now facing some pretty interesting questions. Records are showing that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis paid her alleged lover more money than one of the state's top racketeering experts, John Floyd. The contract showed Floyd got an hourly rate of $150. Wade, who Willis appointed and allegedly had a romantic affair with, even though he never even prosecuted a felony, got $250 per hour. Earlier this week, Fani Willis was claiming that all of her counsels were paid the same rate. I wonder why she doesn't know that those things are like fact checkable. A scathing op-ed says Fani Willis cloaks herself in God and race to say she's above criticism. On Sunday, she claimed the accusations against her and Wade are because they are black. Here's what Clay Travis told me yesterday.
Xin chào các bạn. Chào mừng các bạn đã quay trở lại với kênh YouTube của mình. Về video ngày hôm nay, mình sẽ cho các bạn cách làm một con rồng như thế này nha. Đây. Về để làm một con rồng như thế này thì các bạn sẽ chuẩn bị cho mình. Thứ nhất đó chính là giấy màu. Đây. Các bạn sẽ chuẩn bị cho mình đó chính là giấy màu như thế này. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ chuẩn bị cho mình đó chính là một cây kéo nha. Đây, như này nha các bạn. Và để làm một cái con rồng như thế này thì rất là đơn giản. Các bạn chỉ cần theo dõi video và cùng làm theo với mình thôi. Thì mình sẽ lấy cái tờ giấy màu xanh dương này nha các bạn, để mình làm cái con rồng này. Thì bước đầu tiên, trước khi các bạn làm con rồng này thì các bạn sẽ cắt cái tờ giấy hình chữ nhật này thành một tờ giấy hình vuông cho mình nha. Bằng cách là các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy này xuống này, sẽ cho cái đường ở trên này nó sẽ trùng lại cái phần giấy bên này. Đấy, cái đường ở trên này nha các bạn, trùng lại phần giấy bên này. Đấy, và các bạn sẽ gấp lại cho mình nha. Đây, thì các bạn sẽ gấp lại như này cho mình. Đấy. Sau đó các bạn sẽ cắt bỏ đi cái phần giấy này cho mình nha. Cắt bỏ phần giấy này. Đấy, các bạn sẽ cắt phần này nha. Đây. Về sau khi các bạn đã cắt bỏ đi cái phần giấy đó thì mình sẽ có được một tờ giấy hình vuông như thế này nha các bạn. Đây. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ gấp đôi cái phần giấy này lại cho mình. Đây, bạn sẽ gấp lại sẽ cho hai phần này này các bạn. Phần giấy này nó sẽ trùng lại với nhau như thế này. Nó sẽ trùng lại như thế này. Về các bạn sẽ miết cái phần này lại cho mình nha. Mình miết cái phần này lại nha. Đấy. Các bạn sẽ miết cái phần này lại cho mình nha. Đây, như thế này nha các bạn. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ mở cái phần giấy này ra nè. Đấy. Sau đó các bạn sẽ gấp vào tiếp. Sẽ cho cái phần giấy này và cái phần giấy này nó sẽ trùng với nhau nha. Đấy, bạn sẽ gấp vào cho mình. Đây, như thế này nha các bạn. Về các bạn sẽ miết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình luôn nha. Đây, các bạn sẽ miết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình. Đây, phần giấy này. Đây, như thế này nha các bạn. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ mở phần giấy này ra lại luôn nè. Các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy này vào trong. Sẽ cho hai cái phần đỉnh này này các bạn. Đây, hai phần giấy này nó sẽ trùng với nhau nha. Đấy, nó sẽ trùng vào như thế này. Đấy. Và các bạn sẽ miết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình nha. Miết phần giấy này. Đây, như thế này nha các bạn. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ mở phần giấy này ra lại cho mình nè. Đây, mở ra. Đấy. Sau đó các bạn sẽ gấp hai phần giấy này vào trong. Để cho hai cái phần giấy này nè nó sẽ chạm vào nhau nha. Nó sẽ trùng với nhau như thế này nè các bạn. Nó sẽ trùng vào như thế này. Về các bạn sẽ miết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình nha. Miết phần giấy này lại. Đấy, thì các bạn sẽ miết lại như này. Và các bạn sẽ miết cái phần giấy này cho nó thẳng ra giúp mình nha. Đây, như thế này nha các bạn. Sau đó thì các bạn sẽ mở cái phần giấy này ra lại cho mình. Đấy. Về sau khi các bạn đã thực hiện những cái nắp gấp giống như mình á, thì mình sẽ có được cái phần giấy như thế này. Đấy. Với những cái đường chia như thế này nha các bạn. Đấy. Thì bước tiếp theo các bạn sẽ để cái tờ giấy như thế này cho mình về cái phía trước mặt này, tờ giấy này mình sẽ để lại như thế này cho mình này. Sau đó các bạn sẽ dùng ngón cái, các bạn sẽ dùng hai ngón cái này để các bạn giữ phần giấy này lại. Đấy. Và các bạn sẽ dùng hai ngón trỏ này, và sẽ để ở ngoài sau đây, và các bạn kéo vào. Đấy. Và các bạn sẽ gấp xuống phía dưới nha. Sau đó các bạn sẽ viết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình. Đây, và bên này cũng vậy nha, mình sẽ viết lại cho mình nha. Đấy. Sau đó thì cái phần giấy này các bạn sẽ ép xuống phía dưới cho mình. Sẽ ép xuống. Đây, bạn ép xuống như này. Đấy. Sau đó thì các bạn sẽ viết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình nha. Viết phần giấy này nè. Đây, và sau khi các bạn đã gấp rồi thì các bạn chỉ có được phần giấy như thế này. Hai bên nó sẽ có một cái key như này nha. Và ở dưới nó sẽ như thế này nè. Thì tiếp theo các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy này vào trong. Sẽ cho cái đường đây nó sẽ trùng với lại cái nếp gấp này nha các bạn. Về cái hướng mũi nhọn nó sẽ đi xuống phía dưới nha. Đây, bạn sẽ gấp vào trong cho mình nha. Đây, các bạn sẽ gấp lại như này. Sau đó thì các bạn sẽ viết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình nha. Viết phần giấy này nè. Bạn sẽ viết lại cho mình. Đây, thì các bạn sẽ gấp lại như thế này cho mình nè. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy này vào trong. Sẽ cho cái đường này. Đường này các bạn. Nó sẽ trùng với lại cái nếp gấp ở giữa này. Đây, về cái phần mũi nhọn nó sẽ hướng xuống phía dưới này nha các bạn. Đây, và các bạn sẽ viết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình nha. Viết phần giấy này. Đây, như này nha các bạn. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ mở cái phần giấy này ra lại nè. Đây, mở ra. Đây, như này. Các bạn sẽ để nghiêng qua này một tí nè. Đây. Ở này, bạn cũng sẽ để nghiêng qua một tí mà. Đấy. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ dùng cái ngón trỏ của mình này. Các bạn sẽ đưa xuống phía dưới này, đẩy lên. Đây. Các bạn sẽ dùng ngón trỏ, các bạn sẽ ép cái phần giấy ở đây này. Đấy. Các bạn sẽ ép vào cho mình nha. Các bạn sẽ ép vào trong. Đấy. Và các bạn sẽ chỉnh ở cái phần mũi nhọn này. Đấy. Để cho cái phần giấy này nó được vào cái phần nếp của nó nha. Đấy. Đấy, như này nha các bạn. Tiếp theo thì bên này cũng vậy này. Các bạn sẽ dùng cái ngón trỏ này các bạn. Sẽ đẩy phần giấy này vào. Các bạn sẽ đẩy vào. Đấy. Và các bạn sẽ chỉnh cái phần mũi nhọn này nha. Đấy, và các bạn ép xuống. Đây, như thế này nha các bạn. Sau đó thì các bạn sẽ giữ cái phần giấy này như thế này luôn. Tiếp theo thì ở bên này. Đấy, các bạn cũng sẽ làm tương tự giống như bên này nha các bạn. Thì các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy này vào trong. Sẽ cho cái đường này nè. Sẽ cho cái đường này. Nó sẽ trùng với lại cái phần giấy này. Đấy. Đây, như này nha các bạn. Và các bạn sẽ viết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình. Viết phần giấy này lại này. Đây, như thế này nha các bạn. Sau đó thì các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy này. Đấy, tương tự như vậy nha. Mình sẽ gấp vào trong, xem ra cái đường đây nè. Nó sẽ trùng với lại cái phần nếp ở đây, ở giữa này. Về cái hướng mũi nhọn nó sẽ đi xuống phía dưới nha. Đấy, mình sẽ gấp vào cho mình. Đây, như này nha các bạn. Và các bạn sẽ viết cái phần giấy này lại cho mình. Viết phần giấy này lại nè. Đấy, như này. Và các bạn sẽ viết cái phần này lại cho mình nha. Đây, như này nha các bạn. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ mở phần giấy này ra. Và bẻ qua bên này một tí cho mình. Đấy, bẻ bên này một tí nè. Sau đó các bạn sẽ mở ra. Bạn đỡ ra. Và bên này này các bạn sẽ mở ra. Các bạn sẽ bẻ nghiêng này một tí cho mình nha. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ dùng cái ngón trỏ này. Các bạn sẽ đẩy ở cái phần ở dưới này lên. Bạn đẩy lên. Đây. Rồi các bạn sẽ dùng cái ngón trỏ hồi nãy, các bạn sẽ đẩy phần giấy này vào. Đấy. Đẩy phần giấy này vào. Sẽ đẩy vào cho mình. Rồi các bạn sẽ chỉnh ở cái phần mũi nhọn này cho mình nha, để cho cái phần giấy của mình được thẳng ra. Đây, như này. Và các bạn sẽ ép cái phần giấy này vào trong này. Các bạn ép vào.